all starts with what you think are the issues with the panhandlers as far as your town, okay? Some of the issues that St. Augustine had, for example, I say had because Chief Barry Fox, who's the chief of police in St. Augustine, he's been through the fire with me because he was a bicycle policeman when I did the St. Augustine street vendor ordinance. But I spoke to him no earlier than today, and he called me when I was out of town, as a matter of fact, to say, he said, Michael, I said, what's the effect of the ordinance on St. Augustine? And he said, quote, and he repeated it today, it's like night and day, end quote. And so they're very happy with it up there. The ordinance is based upon distances, and it's based upon distances that I developed for St. Augustine. They may vary in Daytona Beach. They may vary in Daytona Beach. Well, what sort of distances? Well, there were two parameters, and I worked with you all's GIS department, and St. Augustine's was stellar. They actually outsourced it, and it was absolutely stellar to do maps, okay? But there's two distance parameters that I deal with. The first one is prohibiting panhandling, which we define, and solicitation around schools. And what I did in St. Augustine is after the evidence was presented, we established a 100-foot buffer around all schools within which you could not have any solicitation, which was including panhandling. And then the second distance parameter I did was I used a 20-foot buffer around a variety of different places, such as ATMs, places in general where you have a captive audience, such as ingress and egress from shops, such as cab or bus stops. There was a number of different parameters that I used that 20-foot buffer for. So then what happens? Well, here's what happens. When you apply those distance parameters through maps using the GIS department, you end up with a percentage of your town that is available to solicitation and a percentage that is not. And that's the key. That is really the key. There's two keys the way I look at Tampa, and I do a couple of things different. And Mr. Jagger and I had a meeting prior to this, and we were swapping First Amendment tales. And what we talked about was the thing that I've done for 32 years, and that is I create very comprehensive records that are in support of your First Amendment ordinances. They have to be to defend against attack from them. And happily, other than St. Augustine, I've never had any of my ordinances that I've been privileged to be involved with at that point in time ever attacked, ever, okay? And the St. Augustine ordinance, which is a street performer ordinance, I won that. What I did in St. Augustine, I worked with city leaders, and I got a number of business people and other affected people regarding panhandling incidents to testify. That is under oath. There'll be a court reporter there, and they will testify as to the effects of panhandling on them. And the adverse secondary effects is what the fancy name is.
Happily embark upon, because we don't want to be known for what we're becoming known for as it relates to this particular issue. So I'm looking forward to moving forward in the same rapid, jet-like, supersonic-like speed, and maybe even beyond that, the St. Augustine moved with. So if I could have put something in place yesterday or 5 years ago before I got up here in this seat, I would gladly have had that done. So I'm going to conclude with an email that I received today, and portion of it I own a condo at 800 North Atlantic Boulevard and also am the secretary of our condo association. There were originally 2 homeless people living outside of our building. Now there are approximately a dozen homeless outside the building in my parking garage on Riverview by public baths. They stop people and panhandle and scare children. The police say they can do nothing if the city is afraid of lawsuits. I have video and photos, and I'm pleading on behalf of our 117 condo owners to please do something about this area. They have lawn chairs and piles of clothing and suitcases that sit behind the public bathroom building and smoke crack and urinate and defecate between that building and our pool wall. It is a real problem and certainly not helping our tourism. Many of our owners rent, and people are afraid now and say they won't return. If you are not the person I should be asking for help, please let me know who I should contact. I have 117 unit owners complaining to me to do something. I'm hoping you are the one that can help us. If not, I will have no choice but to contact the media and get them out there. I really hope to hear from you. Thank you, so-and-so, so-and-so. I'm ready to move right now. If I devote this moment to do something as strong as possible, I will be ready to cast my ballot or my vote for that. So, staff, I think that the majority of us are in the interest of moving forward with something, preferably with Mr. Khan for me. I'm not going to speak for everyone on that, but that's my preference. But I want something as strong as possible. If there's no further comments, you have any comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This meeting is adjourned and will convene in 20 minutes.